Sorry? Yes.
Okay, there we go. Sound.
Okay, shall we try that intro again?
Yeah, let's go
from the top. Thank you, whoever it was that pointed that out. Guessing Natasha or somebody else? Kai? Is it Kai? Because you can never pronounce Kai's name.
Annie.
Hello.
Kursma.
Okay. Welcome to this Halloween special episode of Cooking with Colum that's already going drastically wrong. It's not a particularly spooky recipe today. I've got to keep my voice a bit down because my baby's currently being put to bed. So, sorry, I had to start again. I forgot to plug the microphone in. Okay.
Nothing's more scary than my background, let's face it.
A proper Halloween special episode. Okay, so we're going to start with the pastry today. And what you want to do is you want 110 grams of butter, which I've already measured out. So let's get that onto the chopping board. And the reason I'm going to cut it into little cubes is because it will make it easier to mix in with the flour once we get the flour going. But you don't want to make your butter too soft. So we've taken it out of fridge fairly recently because if you over soften your butter, it can make the pastry too goopy, too soft, and it won't set properly. If you have a pastry cutter, you probably don't need to worry too much about this bit, so you can probably just add it in with the flour and use the pastry cutter to just mix that all in.
People are commenting on the tick.
On the tick?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay, sorry about that. That is, I was cleaning the oven and I apparently got water into the electronics of the sparker for my stove, and there's no way to sort it except for leaving it to dry out by itself. And short of cancelling the stream, there's not a lot I could do about it. So apologies, guys, that is going to be persistent through the stream. It's not what I wanted, but there's not really a lot I can do. Okay, so that's the butter nicely cut up. One day I'm going to have an episode about technical issues, or electrical issues, or being too loud issues.
Won't happen.
Okay, so once that's done, you want to get your flour measured. And for your flour, you want 225 grams or 8 ounces. That is plain, basic flour. What's not working? Am I having more technical issues?
No, just the camera.
Did the angle go a bit skew?
Yeah.
Okay, that's exactly 225 grams of flour. I realise I put that into the bowl. That's probably should be this way around, because we're going to get messy. Pass the scale back.
Did you cook if you don't get messy?
Indeed. Yes, as I've mentioned on all of my streams, if you're not getting messy and you're not making a mess, you're not doing it right. So this method is called crumbing. Basically, you get your butter in with your flour, and you get your fingers in, and you just mix it together. And I believe it's called crumbing because it starts to make a sort of a crumb-like consistency once it starts forming together. Recipes like this is why I want some clear mixing bowls.
Yes.
This can take a little while to do because well, it is not the fastest methods in the world.
No.
But if you try and rush it, you'll probably wreck your pastry like I did yesterday. I utterly wrecked my pastry. And but, you know, it was actually my first time making it, and the second time went quite well. Let's hope the third time goes quite well. I do have enough ingredients, so if I mess it up the first time, I can go for a second run. Round the block, scared, running away from everyone.
Let's try and fix this, shall we?
Is it just slipping a little bit?
It's just not getting everything.
Yeah, sorry, we're trying a different camera angle today to try and make less camera wobble. In attempting to fix some technical issues, we've created more.
That's better.
Fantastic. Because yes, we've suffered from camera wool when I've been doing things like this in the past, and it's something I wanted to try and avoid in future streams. So the camera's a bit further back than it is normally.
Yeah.
Also, this particular recipe also requires a lot of space. A lot of space. Something that wasn't included in the ingredients list is milk, but I'm hoping most of you keep milk. You can probably use substitutes. Okay, so that's starting to get a really nice crummy texture. Probably one of the only times when something crummy is good. I'm just going to wash my hands for the next part. Okay, so now I'm going to mess around with a bit of sugar. So what is well useful. And for this we want 80 grams of sugar. Yep. And that's also converts into 3 ounces for those working in ounces. That's a little bit much, I'm just going to scoop some back in. That was exactly 10 grams. Excellent. Fantastic. Cool. So that's my 8 grams. And then you just add the sugar. And get that mixed in as well. It'll help with your crumbly texture. Excellent. Don't know why I washed my hands between those 2 steps. The next step though, I do need to clean hands for. Clean our hands. Okay, so now we're adding 1 large egg.
1 large egg.
Indeed. And then you mix that in. And I apologise for the vagueness on this next part. The recipe I'm using for this states, add enough milk to form a soft dough. And that's literally all of the instructions on adding the milk. It's why I ruined my first batch.
Because you made a slurpy dough.
It was more consistency of if you're making soft baked cookies, I think, rather than a pastry.
Mm-hmm.
So, tiny bit of milk. And then if it's not forming into a soft dough, you can add a little bit more, but don't overdo it. This bit also takes a little bit of time. I would suggest you using a silicone spoon. I used a metal spoon in my first one as well, and that wasn't binding it very well, and also had me adding more milk. As you can see, that's starting to firm up. Probably still a bit flaky, so tad more milk.
Tad more milk.
I have the laptop on the table, I can lean on it today. Because this is work. Hopefully I can make enough noise banging this on the table that it'll drown out the clicking. Sorry guys, this is not easy in the slightest. But that is sort of getting to the firmness that you want, which is good. It means I haven't completely ruined this part of the process.
Give it time.
Give it time. It may still make a disgusting pastry. Hey, who knows? The one that I made yesterday that looks fine may be a disgusting pastry. If you can, you want a fairly deep pie dish for this recipe. If you're using a shallower one, make the pastry a bit thinner when you roll it out, and adjust your cooking times. Okay, I think we are good there. So I'm going to prepare the work surface. Will this make your life easier over there?
Yes.
How's that? Okay. I'm using grease-proof baking paper.
Oh, they're aware. They've been looking at it for the past 10 minutes.
There you go.
Here we go. Now we're at the part where we needed the camera so far back.
Yes. You want to flour your paper, but you want that fairly evenly spread because if you got too much flour, it will change the consistency. I don't know what's blowing that corner up. I'm going to flour my hands a little bit as well. So I'll be manually handling the dough. If only it was this easy to make dough at work and stuff. You want to try and keep as much of it together as you can. You're going to have some loss, but I mean honestly the recipe actually makes quite a lot more than is probably needed. That worked super well. Okay. So what we want to do is form that into the best approximation of a ball that you can. There you go.
Anyone that knows Colum, he knows how to handle balls.
Yes, I was pretty good at rugby back in school. And now you're in your rolling pin, and you want to flour that as well.
Because that's going into the oven too.
I do love a bit of roasted rolling pin. No, it's to try and stop the dough sticking to the pin. We just add little bits of that. Now you want to try and roll this out in as best of a circle as you possibly can. So, and as even as a circle as you possibly can. It ain't easy. People who are experienced with this are probably like, what are you talking about? It ain't easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. But you want it to be large enough that it will cover the base of your pie dish and all of its edges. This is going way better than yesterday. Yay for practice rounds. You know what they say, kids, practice makes perfect. Unfortunately I've got 2D vision, so I may have to ask my cameraman for his opinion on the evenness. That look fairly evenly spread to you?
Probably a bit more that way.
A bit more this way?
Yeah.
Definitely not a circle, but it's definitely...
It doesn't need
to be a perfect circle, yeah. Okay, so now we want this into our pie dish. A useful thing to do, I'm just going to pass that back, is to get some Frylight and to just give it a quick light spraying. You don't want too much on there. And then this should hopefully just lift, he says. Now this is going to require a little bit of construction, but honestly this went better than yesterday. And you want to try and make sure, as much as possible, there's no gaps in the pastry. I'm going to get rid of this now because it's going to just get in the way. Okay, now this part is definitely more art than technique. Well, technique, you know what I mean. It's my wife who's made this many times. When I was like, so how do you do this, throwing it into this part? She's like, it's art, it's not. And you think, that can be easily done, but yeah, as you saw, that went quite well. You've got things well floured. You want to try and make sure that there's a decent sill against a pie dish, because you don't want any air underneath it, otherwise it will cause it to rise from the bottom, and that will ruin the consistency of your pie. This particular pastry can be used for apple pies, tarts, anything that you want to bake really. As you can see, I'm just taking parts that are overhanging and redistributing them to other areas of the pie. This pie dish makes it fairly easy to make the edges look a bit nicer. The excess pastry you can use if you want to make like a little, I guess, sugar cookie, or you could turn them into as dough twists, add a bit of cinnamon to them, and throw them in the oven along with your pie. Just keep in mind they will cook faster. The YTX got on that front though, so I don't actually know the cooking times if you want to do that, but I'm sure you can look it up. But that's what we're here for, Colin, to look it up with you. Yeah, sorry, I'm not a big, as I've mentioned before, I'm not particularly experienced with pastry. You do want to try and make it as evenly spread across the whole dish though, otherwise, again, it will cook differently in different areas and you don't really want that. And if you need to, just spread it over the edge and separate it. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's move that out of the way. As I notice as I move it away, there's a bit of a gap in the pastry, just going to patch that. Okay, now for the fun bit, boys and girls, the pumpkin mix. Okay, you okay on stuff over there, mate? Fantastic. Okay, give me 2 ticks while I just switch tabs. Now, if you are having issues with your pastry and you're not having much fun making it yourself, we do have the backup option of just roll pastry, which is basically pre-made pastry that you just roll out of the tube, and it makes the pie. Well, it's basically, you don't have to do everything I just did there. You just do the end part. Okay. This needs to be in 2 separate stages. That's not actually going to be big enough, I don't think. Give me 2 ticks, because I just need to wash this bowl out to use for the spice and the sugar and spice section of this recipe. Suddenly that I don't have a TV towel. So I'm hiding underneath it. Can I borrow one of your mixing bowls? They should be on your stack over there.
Are they?
I washed them both today, so
Yeah.
just because I don't want to put sugar and spice into a wet bowl, and I've realised that I don't have a cloth to clean them with, so. Joys of having a child, boys and girls. They like to take all of your clean stuff and throw them on the floor on days you need them. Okay, so you want sugar, and this is going to be 3/4 of a cup of sugar, which I do have my 1/4 cup measurement hiding behind here. My trusty RTD2. Apologies, boys and girls. My child's been having some issues this weak, so sorry you can hear him, but the breaks are being apparent sometimes. Getting not going so well. Sorry, Anne. We will have pie at the end of this to celebrate our successes. Then you want to add 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, as I have here. If you haven't guessed, this isn't a Slim World friendly recipe. Or probably any diet friendly recipe, but it is delicious. Then you want to add a ½ teaspoon of salt.
I'm going to do some pie crust.
I told you the spare pie crust can be tasty and used for other things.
Forward a bit.
So that's ½ teaspoon of salt in there. You want ½ teaspoon of ground ginger. Boop. And a ¼ teaspoon of ground cloves. Now, I don't have a ¼ teaspoon anymore, it ran away, so I'm going to estimate using the ½ teaspoon. About that. Okay, I'm going to throw those backwards. So, you put those aside, and you want to beat 2 large eggs in your large bowl. When I'm beating up my eggs, I just like to use a fork. You want a nice whisking motion of that. It should keep your eggs nice and together. Lovely jelly. Where'd my pumpkin go? There it is. I'm going blind, guys, don't mind me. So open your tin of pumpkin. Hopefully you've managed to source some. I know it's a bit difficult in the UK. You want to just throw that in. Sometimes it can get a bit stuck, but it's pureed pumpkin, what do you expect? Get much out of the can as you can. I think I've got a spatula here just to make this a little bit on the easier side. Spatulas are great for this sort of thing. Nice slap motion there. Okay, and you want to pop in your spice mix into that now. And now we're going to mix it. You could use a manual whisker. I am not going to. Alright. Start on low so that the powder and the spices mixed in with the goofiest content. And you can increase the speed of your whisk. Yeah, if you do me a favour and open that tin. Get your tin of condensed milk open if you haven't already. That's fine. And while you are mixing it, you want to just gradually add the entire tin of condensed milk into your mixture. if you haven't already, start preheating your oven. And you want to preheat it to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which converts to roughly 220, give or take. The conversions aren't quite exact, but don't worry if it looks runny, that is perfectly fine. You just take your pie, you just want to pour that all in. So we don't quite mix it, let's just give that a little bit of a stir. Just trying as much in as possible. And fill up that pie crust. Again, if you're using a smaller pie crust, don't go stupid and spill it all over the edges. Would it make your life easier to boil that? Maybe I'll make sure it's into it. Okay, that is ready to go into the oven. I'm just going to check the temperatures over here. So you want that in there at that temperature for the first 15 minutes. So I'm going to put this in here. We found with our oven the middle shelf stops the top and the crust from burning too much. After 15 minutes you want to reduce it to 350 Fahrenheit, which is roughly 180, and then you want to cook it for a further 40 to 50 minutes at that temperature. If after 40 minutes it looks cooked, it's risen a little, the pastry looks done, take it out. If it needs to every 10 minutes, throw it in, that's fine. And afterwards you should get something like what I made earlier. Jay, can you get that for me? We've set this up really well. Might need 2 hands. And that was a completed product from yesterday's trial attempt. The pastry did burn a little bit around the edges, but the pie dish is a bit shallower. But yes, I have no doubt that's going to be a delicious dish. I'm going to wait till the wife's finished settling to find out if we can crack into this one. But yeah, that's that done. Camera still down? Where's the camera point? At the dish currently.
Yeah.
So that is, I probably should set the timer. So that's us done for today. Thank you for joining us for Halloween stream. Is there anybody who has any questions or anything they would like answering before we sign off for the day?
Sorry, I've made a mess.
That's okay. I've made a mess. Have you seen my counter over here?
Just give him time.
Give it time. Give my usual dance. This is what they join for. They don't care about the cook.
Yeah, this is what they joined for.
It is what you helped me for. Guessing no questions so far? Nothing popping up?
No questions so far. Oh, here we go. Was fun to see from Annie.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. It's I'm glad you've enjoyed watching it. I guess we'll sign off there then. Thank you very much for joining us this week. I'm not 100% sure what I've got planned for next week yet. I've got to have a look through my list. I don't want to make too many things that are too similar. So we've had some pasta dishes, we've had some rice dishes. So I'm going to have a look through, see what I can bring you guys. That is a little bit on a different side. And I'll see you all next week. Thank you very much again, and take care.